Yeah. How do you, I usually record them all in one thing and mark them, and then go cut them. Is that what you do?
No,
You do them individually?
Yeah.
Oh. I find it easier to just do them all, and then work my way down.
I would lose
Labeling
something, especially when you have all those that have so many cuts. Cut here, cut here, cut here.
Yeah, but that's the problem is they don't always come in, you know. That works if you've got a bunch of them already in. It depends on how they come in.
Oh, me. Tomorrow is probably the first day off I really am not looking forward to.
That you are looking forward to?
Not looking forward to it. Moving furniture and dealing with all that. I'm not looking forward to it.
Oops. This is on the screen.
All right, here we go in 30 seconds. We'll put-
Jesus. Amen.
You cannot come into this White House with the idea that these people aren't the enemy. They are.
You want the prison so filled with Trumps and Trump flunkies and Trump apologists and Trump enablers that we have to convert Trump buildings into new Trump prisons.
This is the kind of stuff that's on Bryan Fischer's show all the time.
This is just a warning to you Trumpers. We ain't playing with you. For those of you who are soldiers, you know how to do it. Do it right.
Abraham Lincoln won, fairly. Enslaved states were about that, and they seceded, and there was a civil war. Joe Biden is Abraham Lincoln here, and the president is the slave states, the ones who seceded. That's who Donald Trump is relating to this morning.
Freedom prospers when religion is vibrant and the rule of law under God is acknowledged. An informed patriot is what we want.
Welcome to American Family Radio's Focal Point, the home of muscular Christianity on conservative talk radio.
Muscular Christianity.
Where we relentlessly explore the intersection of truth and
The
politics.
trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so.
Now, here's your host, Bryan Fischer.
Howdy and welcome, my fellow focal pointers, to another live broadcast edition of Focal Point on American Family Radio. I am President-elect Bryan Fischer with exactly the same number of certified electoral votes as Joe Biden. Welcome. I am your host, congenial, convivial, amiable, and effervescent.
As always.
Jeff and Rob in the house bringing you the content for today. Couple of quick items before we jump into content today. Reminder, you get podcasts at afr.net. Encourage you again, especially this time right now, this season, this political season, get a podcast app for your phone and then subscribe to the Focal Point program. Never need to miss a broadcast. You can also live stream this program on our Focal Point Facebook page and on our YouTube channel. Email address is focalpoint@afa.net. You can follow me on Twitter or on Parler, the new social media site for conservatives. Won't get censored there. Won't get put in the Google gulag. If you go on Parler, you can follow me there and on Twitter at Bryan J. Fischer. That's my handle. Again, just one more reminder that we are in the Christmas season. If you're thinking about a last-minute gift for somebody you care about, for a father of a young son, I want to encourage you to consider the possibility of buying that father of a 12-year-old son, or right in that age, buy him a copy of the Boy to Man book. It's a book designed for a father to read with his young son. It contains the distilled wisdom of Solomon, all the things that Solomon wanted his sons to know. Really what the book of Proverbs is a fatherhood training manual. Solomon puts in there all the stuff. 31 times he says, my son, or 23 times, somewhere in there, a whole bunch of times. Clearly what he wanted his son to know on his journey to adulthood. I've tried to distill that in this book, The Boy to Man book. You can order a copy today at afastore.net. That's afastore.net. All right, well, let's turn our attention to the Word of God. We are in the book of Judges right now. We're right in the middle of the Gideon story. Got some good stuff here we're going to go over today. You know, now the Midianites had 135,000 people. Now, not all of them were warriors, but they had 135,000 people they could draw from. And they had come in, they had invaded the land, they were destroying their crops. Remember Gideon, what little wheat they could save. The angel of the Lord found him down in the bottom of a wine press, you know, lined with rocks and stuff. But he's trying to keep his head down so the Midianites can't see him while he pounds out what little grain they have been able to preserve from the Midianites. And then God, the angel says, look, you are a mighty warrior, a man of valor, mighty man of valor. And Gideon says, where? I don't see one of those around here. And the angel of the Lord says, in essence, Gideon, I see one in you. I see you not as you are. I see you as you can be when you depend upon the indwelling power of God in your life. And this is what I want you to do. I want you to go up and I want you to set your people free from the Midianites. Now in chapter 7, God begins to talk to him and spell out the plan. And here's what he says. The Lord says to Gideon, the people with you are too many for me to give the Midianites into their hand, lest Israel boast over me, saying, my own hand has saved me. Now, we usually complain that we don't have enough resources. We don't have enough people. We don't have enough money. We don't have enough stuff to get the job done. And maybe even right now in your life, you're facing a situation like that, perhaps in business, perhaps in your ministry and in our nation, perhaps in your family. You're dealing with something, it looks overwhelming, it looks overpowering, and you look at the resources you have to bring to the task, and you come to the conclusion that you don't have enough at your disposal. Now, sometimes, you know, it's happened to Gideon once in his life, so this may not happen every day, but I guarantee you at some point God is going to send you into a situation and direct you to take on a responsibility, and you know going into this thing that you are under-resourced, that you are outmanned, and that you are outgunned. But this may just be God's way of setting things up so that when his will is done, nobody, including you, including me, will even be tempted to take credit for it. It won't be false humility, because we will know down in the bottom of our souls, we won't have to pretend about this. We will know that this was God's doing and God's doing alone. Now, God says you got too many people. So what do you want me to do? God says, well, the first thing I want you to do is ask all your troops, have about 32,000, ask them if any of you are afraid and trembling, if you're quaking in your boots, you just don't want to go to war, let them return home. So 22,000 of Gideon's 32,000 went home. They deserted him. So he started with 32,000. Now he is down to 10,000. And everybody else went home. And God says in verse 4, so Gideon's thinking, wow, dodged the bullet. At least I get to go to war with 10,000 warriors. And God says, no, you still have too many people. I want you to take him down to the water, and I'm going to test everybody you've got in that band of 10,000. Everyone who laps the water with his tongue versus the one who kneels down to drink. That's the test. Which of these two things do they do? Do they kneel down? Do they get down on all fours like a little puppy dog and stick their face in the water with their weapon laying down at their side on the ground? Or do they lap the water by bringing it to their mouths with their hands? On one knee, with a weapon in their left hand, scoop water to their mouth with the right, able to keep their head up with their weapon at their disposal in hand. It's a test of alertness It's a test of awareness, kind of guys you want to take into battle with you. And how many men lapped the water with their hands? 300. Only 300. So God says with the 300 men who lapped water with the palms of their hands, I will save you and give the 135,000 member army of the Midianites into your hand. So listen to the odds, what are happening to the odds for Gideon now. When he started out, it was 135,000 Midianites to 32,000 of Gideon's soldiers. Those were 4-to-1 odds. They got 135K. We've got 2K. We're outnumbered 4-to-1. God says, no, you got too many. Sent the first batch home. Now the odds were down to 13-to-1. They went from 4-to-1 to 13-to-1, 135K down to 10K. God says, no, even though you're outnumbered 13-to-1, you still have too many. So he sent the second batch home, and now Gideon was down to 300. 135,000 against 300. Now outnumbered 450-to-1. And God says, that looks just about right. Reminds me of a World War I story I heard about a commanding officer says, all right, men, we're surrounded. Don't let any of them escape. That was the kind of heartbeat that Gideon had and instilled in his men. So God says, look, I know you're outnumbered 450-to-1, but what I want you to do is I want you to go down to the camp tonight, hear what they say, and your hands will be strengthened. Now remember, as he's looking out over the fruited plain, it's Midianites like locusts. They're camels he couldn't even count. They were like the sand on the seashore. So when he gets down there and hides in the bushes and listens to these guys talk, a man was telling a dream to his comrade. This is in the middle of an army of 135,000. I dreamed a dream. Behold, a cake of barley bread. This is the cheapest bread that you could get. Absolutely nothing fancy about it. Everything ordinary about it. Just like Gideon and just like his troops. And this loaf of barley bread, the Midianite says, tumbled into the camp of Midian and came to the tent and struck it so that it fell and turned it upside down, so that the tent lay flat on the ground. His comrade said, this is none other than the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash, a man of Israel. God has given into his hand Midian and all the camp. So Gideon hears this Midianite say, what this means is we're cooked. We are toast. That loaf of barley bread, that signifies Gideon. We thought he was nothing. We thought he was a nobody. We thought we had them outnumbered 450-to-1. But when I saw this loaf of barley bread come tumbling into the camp, it knocked down every tent we had. Everything fell flat. So we're told in verse 15, as soon as Gideon heard the telling of the dream and its interpretation, he worshiped God. So he's sitting there behind his clump of sagebrush, crouching there so he won't be seen, and he worships God right there out in the desert, crouching behind the bush. Here's the point. You and I, we can worship God anywhere. We can worship him in prayer even right now, which is what we're going to do. Now, the end of the story is, remember, Gideon had 300 men. He outfitted them all with a sword in one hand and a jar in the other that contained a torch. You couldn't see it because it was inside the jar. So they had a sword in one hand, this jar in the other. Now, Gideon says, look, we're going to surround their camp. We're going to be pretty far apart. But when I give you the signal, I want everybody to blow on their trumpet, because they had a trumpet in one hand, and I want you to smash your jars in the other so that the light, the torch, will start blazing brightly in the darkness of the night. And then I want to yell at the top of your voices, a sword for the Lord and for Gideon. They were already afraid of Gideon because of this dream that went through the camp. And when they did that, remember, it's the middle of the night. So it's in the middle of the Midianite camp. They can't see because of the darkness. They wind up hacking each other to pieces and running for their lives. And Gideon won a tremendous battle for the people of God. Well, let's worship the Lord right now by going to prayer. Sovereign Lord, I pray for all of us. I pray for everyone in this Focal Point listening audience. I pray that we will deepen our dependence upon you so that we will never be tempted to boast against you that our own strength has saved us. I also ask, because of our confidence in you, we may be able to face every challenge, no matter how daunting, without giving way to fear and turning back. Please give us reassurance whenever we need it, that you are with us and that you will deliver us. I ask you to encourage us when we are afraid. Remind us that you can do great things through entirely common and ordinary people who are wholly yielded to you. I pray that when you sift your people, looking for those you can trust with significant responsibility, that you will choose each one of us to go with you into battle. May we spiritually always be on the alert, aware that Satan is prowling around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. May we resist him steadfast in our faith. I pray that we will learn to worship you anywhere and everywhere, just as Gideon did, kneeling behind a bush in the darkness. And Lord, in this time of crisis for our nation, we ask you to bring to light every evil thing that is hidden in the darkness, so that the truth may be seen, the law may be upheld, and justice may be done. Listen to Focal Point on American Family Radio. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
With Bryan Fischer on American Family Radio.
Howdy, and welcome back to Focal Point, the home epitome of muscular Christianity, the kind of guys that Gideon was looking for. Anyway, Bryan Fischer is my name. Alongside me, Jeff Reed and Rob Gardner, bringing you the content of the day. In fact, Jeff, let's go to you. You were telling me a kind of a neat story today. Let's hear what you got.
Yeah, in times like this, of a lot of selfishness and greed and destruction, we need a story like this. One drive-through customer at a Dairy Queen in Bryan, Minnesota, had an act of kindness and paid forward the cost of the order behind him. Well, that started a 900 car pay it forward chain at the Dairy Queen, and in the end, almost $10,000 worth of food was paid forward. Wow. So this just went on. This went on for 2 days. But at the end of the first day, they had $10 left over, so they just started it the next day, and it continued. This was just people being moved left and right, and everybody being encouraged by this. I think this actually gained a little national attention at one time. The manager of the Dairy Queen was deeply moved, and she posted on Facebook saying, "Wow, this is hard for us to come up with the right words to say. You brought smiles and maybe even a little tears to our whole crew, and we're sure to you as well. This is a great act of humanity. This is what the world needs more of, whether it be to make someone's day, the holiday spirit, or just to feel like a kid again. Thank you, fans, for letting us serve you one little red spoon at a time."
That's a cool story. Well, you know,
2 days.
Yeah,
2 days.
That's the Spirit of God right there. You know, and there's something about the Christmas spirit. I think the Spirit of Jesus just kind of gets diffused across the whole country during the Christmas season. It just lightens everybody's mood. It brings a sense of peace. It brings joy. It brings generosity. That's the influence of the life of Christ down in history, whether people even know it or not. They're responding to the example and the influence of Christ. Great story. Thank you for that.
We need a lot of that.
Yeah, and that's the kind of kindness that is biblical. I mean, you're basically paying for somebody's meal, and you drive off before they even realize it. So that's kind of the way things should be done.
You know what I wouldn't want to be? I wouldn't want to be the guy that broke that chain. I wouldn't want to be the guy that was in car number 901.
Yeah, it was probably the Grinch.
I just left my money in my wallet and drove off.
It was probably Gavin Newsom.
Yeah. But I wouldn't want to be that guy because people are going to come looking for me to key my car after breaking up that chain. Anyway, good story. Here's an update from Facebook, those wonders of objectivity and conservative values. They suspended the pages of a British historical society because they thought it was a militia group.
Oh, man.
And their Facebook page labels themselves the Wimborne Militia. This is a UK group, and they call themselves the Wimborne Militia because they reenact famous battles in British history. And Facebook even suspended 5 of their personal pages before they checked into this thing to find anything about this group at all. What they like to do is go around and reenact famous battles, British battles from the 19th century. They have 17th century weapons is what they're carrying around. And by the way, they have shotgun licenses for all of them. They just do reenactments, but they got militia in their name. So the algorithms at Facebook just started pinging like mad, and they yanked them down. A victim of Facebook's algorithms that labeled them and canceled them. But this group likes to do community stuff. One of the last things they did was host a Christmas tree lighting ceremony in one town. So apparently they finally got their Facebook privileges back. But that lets you know just how mindless, ladies and gentlemen, how mindless Facebook is. If you belong to the Southern Baptist Conference, SBC, might want to be alert. This is an email that I came across from somebody who is in Southern Baptist leadership of one kind or another. I don't know exactly what his position is. But anyway, he let people look at this email, and this is for Southern Baptists. This is for somebody who's in the Southern Baptist movement, and he's writing this to all Southern Baptist leaders. And here's what he says. I am writing to ask that you support the Racial Reconciliation Project. Now he says this is what the Racial Reconciliation Project is all about in the Southern Baptist Conference. For over 100 years, white people have dominated the SBC. We are asking that all white heads of the SBC entities step down and be replaced by people of color. These SBC entities include the president, the CEO, all the seminaries. Far as I know, all of them are led by white seminary presidents, and the ERLC and a couple of other things. Lifeway, ERLC, that's Russell Moore, who's a total white bread, just like I am. This may actually get Russell Moore to finally find a leftist initiative that he will oppose, because they're coming for his job. They want to take him out. And in the spirit of generosity, they say, we are not asking that every new head of the above entities be African American, but they should all be non-white. You know, this is the cancel culture. This is social justice warriors on parade. This is critical race theory, which is just racism. It's unadorned racism. Notice what this guy does. I don't even recognize his name. I don't know who he is. I don't know anything about this Racial Reconciliation Project. But notice what he's doing. He got leadership in this denomination. You've got seminaries. You have the denomination itself. You have mission agencies. You have the Religious Liberty Conference, all of these. And he does not want leaders for these entities of the SBC to be chosen based on education, based on ability, based on ability to lead, based on maturity, based on their capacity to teach the Word of God or the soundness of their theology. He wants it based on their skin color. Now, what do you call it when you pick some based on their skin color and you exclude others based on their skin color? We call that, well, Martin Luther King called it racism, and that's exactly what it is. Now, here's a Christmas tree story that will make you cringe. This is from the abortion crowd. I mean, there's a depravity. I don't think we've sounded the depths of the depravity in the abortion movement, but this is close to the bottom. This is the staff of late-term abortionist Leroy Carhart. Leroy Carhart, late-term abortion. He actually believes in partial birth abortion, where you partially deliver a baby, then you stick some scissors in the back of its head, you crush the skull of the baby, you drain out the brains matter, and then you deliver a dead baby who comes out partially born. So that's what Leroy Carhart stands for. And they've got a photo on Twitter that was shared by apparently one of Carhart's employees of a Christmas tree. Maybe it's in one of their abortion offices, maybe it's in one of their homes, but it shows Sofer clamps, that's S-O-P-H-E-R, Sofer clamps on top of the tree, standing in substitute for the traditional star or the angel. They've got a Sofer clamp, couple of them, on the top of this tree. Now, here's what a Sofer clamp is. A Sofer clamp is a grasping instrument with rows of sharp teeth that typically is used to abort unborn babies between 12 and 25 weeks of pregnancy. The Sofer clamp is used to grasp and pull the baby's arms and legs right off of its body in a dismemberment abortion, or a D&E, that's dilation and extraction, where they just tear the baby literally limb from limb and then pull it out. And this Leroy Carhart guy admits that he kills babies. He doesn't call it a fetus. He doesn't call it a clump of cells. He did an interview with the BBC in 2019, and he told the host, honestly, directly, without trying to sugarcoat it, that he kills babies and that he has no problem doing it, even after they're viable. And he uses the word baby, too, not just some kind of euphemism. So that's your Christmas cheer from the crowd, the abortion industry, including our friends over at Planned Parenthood. Now let's look at some contemporary issues today, beginning with just some stuff from the election. Let's start with a couple of sound bites here. Why don't we begin with, let's start with clips 1 and 2. Let's start right there, Rob. Joe Biden made a big deal. All he could talk about is this new tone he was going to set, how we were going to be unified as a people, how under his leadership there would be this glorious dawn of unity and peace and harmony among the American people. Well, apparently, the talking snake media did not get the message. Here are some highlights from what the talking snake media had to say over the last couple of days about this whole unity thing. Clip 1.
You cannot come into this White House with the idea that these people aren't the enemy. They are.
The hottest places in hell are reserved for those who, at a time of moral crisis, remain neutral.
Shame on them. They are going to lose way more than this election.
We want the prisons so filled with Trumps and Trump flunkies and Trump apologists and Trump enablers that we have to convert Trump buildings into new Trump prisons.
Welcome to Joe Biden's America.
Say it ain't so, Joe. Say it ain't so.
So that's Joe Biden's America. These are mainstream media types, talking snake media types. No, we're not about unity. Republicans are the enemy, not just the adversary, not just the political adversary or the political opponent, but the enemy. A lot of unity in that. And another one saying the hottest places in hell are reserved for people that support Donald Trump. That's the bottom line there. And what we need to do is we need to turn every Trump hotel, every Trump tower in the world into a prison for people that follow and like Donald Trump. Now, let's go to clip number 2. Joe Biden's got to pick a defense secretary, and he's nominated a guy by the name of General Lloyd Austin. Now, this guy is on the board of Raytheon, which makes weapons for the United States military. I have no problem with that. Somebody needs to make these. But this guy, who's going to be in charge of the Pentagon, is a board member at Raytheon. When you talk about a major conflict of interest. And there's another problem. This guy is retired military, and he hasn't been out long enough to automatically qualify for the waiver. Because the idea is our military is to be led by civilians. That's why the commander-in-chief is a civilian. He is not a military man. President of the United States is the commander-in-chief. He's the top dog in the United States military, and that is by design. Because our founders knew the hazards when you get a political leader who has a military at his command. It is lights out for freedom and for democracy. So anyway, here is Joe Biden, and listen to him talk about how he picked General Lloyd Austin. Clip 2.
We need his personal experience helping inform our efforts to ensure that our armed forces reflect the full strength and diversity of our nation. That Black, Latino, Asian American, Native American, women, men, LGBT service members are treated with dignity and respect. You know, at a time when more than 40% of our more than 40% of our active duty forces are people of color. It's long past time that the department's leadership reflects that diversity.
Okay, so notice what matters to Joe Biden. What matters to Joe Biden is skin color, not military competence. So what do you call it when you make important decisions based on skin color? What did Martin Luther King call that? He called it racism. You know, Martin Luther King did not die so that we could choose people for leadership based on the color of their skin. That's what Martin Luther King fought for his entire adult life. So what do we call it when somebody makes important decisions based on skin color rather than competence? We call that racism. So I'm here to tell you, I don't know if I'm the first one to say this, but I am going to tell you right out that Joe Biden is a racist. You know, the left tried to tag Donald Trump with that. He's a racist. He's not. There's not a racist bone in Donald Trump's body. But Joe Biden is a certified, by the words that came out of his mouth, he's a certified racist, because the important thing to Joe Biden is not skill, it's not competence, it's not can he do the job, it's not how good is he at what we're looking for, it's does he have the right skin color. Ladies and gentlemen, that is racism straight up. Joe Biden wants to be our next president, so he wants this country, if he gets put into office, this nation will be led by a certified racist. All right. Good news today. There are 18 states that have joined Texas in their lawsuit against these 4 states, Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Georgia, to challenge the way they conducted their elections and accuse them of violating the federal Constitution. That means there's a federal issue here. That's why the Supreme Court can take it. We'll talk about this more on the other side. Stay with us.
American Family Radio. You're listening to Focal Point with Bryan Fischer.
Howdy, and welcome back to Focal Point on American Family Radio, the home of the fastest 60 minutes in American media. You know, in the last segment, I suggested that if you look at things honestly, you look at things clearly, you look at things objectively, Joe Biden is a racist because he makes major decisions based on race, like who the head of the Pentagon is going to be. That makes him a racist in my book. I think it makes him a racist in anybody's book. Now, he's not aware of it, and he'll have Democrats who will defend him to the hilt, not aware that they are defending someone whose ideology is plainly racist. But they don't have any restraint in going after Donald Trump as a racist. So you might think, well, that's kind of harsh to call him a racist, call Joe Biden a racist. I think the objective facts will clearly support that, what I've laid out for you, sound bites I've played for you. But now listen to John Berman of CNN and listen to what he has to say, clip 3, about Donald Trump.
Because Abraham Lincoln won fairly. Enslaved states were about that, and they seceded, and there was a civil war. So by the reasoning of the president's crack legal team, Joe Biden is Abraham Lincoln here, the guy who won fairly. And the president is the slave states, the ones who seceded, and then the Civil War. That's who Donald Trump is relating to this morning.
So, in John Berman's ideology, Donald Trump is no better than a slaveholder. He's as racist as Jefferson Davis was. He was as racist as any of the people that are on those statues we want to tear down. So that's John Berman, that's CNN, that's a major media voice in America, identifying Donald Trump with the Confederacy, with the guys that wore the white hoods. That's how he thinks of Donald Trump. Now, good news on the electoral front. 18 states have joined Texas to challenge Joe Biden's victory in those 4 states, in the states of Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Wisconsin. And they've got 18 states that have joined them. Another one is signed on today. So notice what you have, ladies and gentlemen. Do not miss this. This is 1/3 of the states in the United States of America. 1/3 of them have a legal complaint against these 4 states. And remember, when states have a lawsuit against each other, that immediately goes to the Supreme Court. They have original jurisdiction. Now, they don't have to take a case. Andy McCarthy writing yesterday that there's no way that they will. You know, I look at it from the standpoint of how can they not? How can they not take this case? Because this has to do with election law. It has to do with the Electors Clause in the United States Constitution and how state election law has been violated in a federal election. That gives them a federal cause of action. And where else are you going to go to get this resolved? If it violates the Constitution, where's the ultimate court of appeal when it's a constitutional violation? Well, it's the Supreme Court. So you got 18 states now are for this, and they're complaining about the loose election rules in these states that wind up disenfranchising the voters in Texas because it dilutes the value of their vote and maybe even cancels the value of their vote. You know, if Donald Trump was the legitimate winner of this past election, as I completely believe him to be, then when you have fraud overturn the result of that election, you have disenfranchised every single voter that in good faith voted for Donald Trump. We would be telling them, look, your vote doesn't matter to us. You can be cheated out of your vote. We will allow people to fraudulently deprive you of the franchise. We will allow people to win this election by cheating, meaning your vote doesn't count at all. We're going to dismiss your vote. Your vote has no value to us. The votes that were registered based on cheating and fraud, those are the votes that count for us. So anyway, I just don't see how the Supreme Court cannot take this. Andy McCarthy may be right that there's no way that they will, and he has some technicalities about all of that. But these states broke their own state laws, and they violated the Electors Clause of the Constitution by changing electoral law. Well, they can't do that. You can't change law. A bureaucrat can't change the law. I mean, mayors and governors today think they can, but they can't. That's the reason they keep losing in court with these lockdowns and these restrictions on corporate worship. The judges increasingly are not going to let them do it. By the way, we sent out an action note yesterday, which I would encourage you to do. Doesn't matter whether you're in a red state or a blue state. I live in a blue state, and our Attorney General is the Attorney General that wanted to lock Barronelle Stutzman up after he had taken every single thing that she owns. He wanted to leave her sitting on the curb in her skivvies with no house, no wardrobe, no bank account. That's what he tried to do to this grandmother who was just running a florist shop. And her crime was that she politely declined to make a flower arrangement for a same-sex wedding, to which there is no right in the Constitution for a same-sex wedding. So anyway, I used the AFA Action Alert yesterday. You can find it on our website, afa.net, and it gives you an opportunity to send a letter to your Attorney General. So I sent one to Mr. Bob Ferguson. I got a reply back today, 1 day later. Thank you for your correspondence. We always appreciate hearing from our constituents, I bet. And here's the next line. The Washington State Attorney's Office will not be joining this lawsuit. Big surprise there. Thank you for your email. That from the man I believe personally to be the worst Attorney General in the United States of America. There's a county in Georgia that had the courage, Coffee County Board of Elections. They have refused to certify the electronic results of the 2020 election. They say the machines that were used to count the votes cannot be tested to duplicate a credible recount. They cannot certify, the County Board of Elections cannot certify the electronic recount numbers given the inability of this machine to repeatedly duplicate credible election results. So the results we got out of this counting machine were not repeatable or dependable. So for people to demand certification from us of a patently inaccurate set of results neither serves the objective of the electoral system, nor does it satisfy the legal obligation to certify the electronic recount. So they refuse to, now just one county, so I don't know what it'll mean, but they are refusing to certify the election. We talked with you yesterday, and Jeff Reed played the soundbite of this Michigan State representative who threatened Trump supporters on her Facebook page. She's a sitting member of the Michigan legislature. And she said, she told soldiers, look, you know what to do. You know what to do with these vermin. She didn't use that word, but that's what she meant. These vermin that support Donald Trump. And so basically it was a call on them to take out these Trump supporters, these rats that follow Donald Trump. Well, that was a bridge too far, even for the Democrats in the Michigan State Legislature. Her name is Cynthia Johnson. She has been completely stripped of all her committee assignments. After you tell soldiers to make followers of a different political party to make them pay, even the Democrats in Michigan recognize now that is definitely a bridge too far. All right, let's see what we got. A couple of prominent stories today. Let me hit these as quickly as I can. On Eric Swalwell. And Eric Swalwell is in big trouble because he had a mistress who was a Chinese spy. And now everybody knows that. It's been outed. Her name is Fang Fang, which seems to me a suitable name for a Chinese spy. And she cozied up to Eric Swalwell as a sitting United States congressman. She got inside his office. She got inside his brain. And he was on the Intelligence Committee. He was on the Intelligence Committee. And so she's coddling up next to a guy who either was destined to be or was on the Intelligence Committee. So this is clearly a security breach, makes him a security risk. Now let's play a couple of clips about Eric Swalwell. Clip number 4. Here is Eric Swalwell back in the day in 2016 talking about Donald Trump's son. Let's listen.
Stated plainly, the president's son met with a Russian spy. You see from all individuals here, from the president's son to his son-in-law to his campaign chairman, an eagerness and a willingness to work with the Russians. What that materialized to, I think at this point only special counsel knows.
Okay, goes it up to a Russian spy. That was the problem with Donald Trump's son. Something ought to be done by the special counsel. So I say we take Eric Swalwell's advice and we apply it to him. We need a special counsel to look into what Eric Swalwell has been up to, what kind of intelligence secrets may have been compromised by this honey trap that the Russians sent to him. Now, clip number 5, here's Eric Swalwell. All this news comes out now. I mean, he had an affair with this woman back 2011 to 2015. She's been out of the country now for 5 years. And here's Eric Swalwell's reaction when she is outed as a Chinese spy.
Did you have any concerns about this person before you had what's known as a defensive briefing from the FBI to make you aware of this threat?
No, Jim, I was shocked when, just over 6 years ago, I was told about this individual. And then I offered to help, and I did help. And I was thanked by the FBI for my help, and that person is no longer in the country.
So in other words, what the FBI did is they came to Eric Swalwell and said, you need to be careful here because you're in a romantic and sexual relationship with a Chinese spy. So what did Eric Swalwell do? He went straight to this Chinese spy and said, you've been outed. The FBI is on to you. And before that sentence was over, she was leaving the country. So Eric Swalwell betrayed to her that she was under investigation so she could skedaddle for high ground. Now here is the second. Clip number 6. This is Eric Swalwell. And now he's shifting the blame. It's not his fault. Obviously, it could never be his fault. For a Democrat, it's never their fault. Let's listen.
But the wrongdoing here, Jim, is that at the same time this story was being leaked out is the time that I was working on impeachment on the House Intelligence and Judiciary Committees. And if this is a country where people who criticize the president are going to have law enforcement information weaponized against them, that's not a country that any of us want to live in. And I hope it is investigated as to who leaked this information.
All right, so Eric Swalwell blames it on Trump. You see how their mind is so bent that everything, I mean, Trump wasn't even in the picture when this happened. This happened in 2011 to 2015. He hadn't even walked down the escalator yet. But still, all of this is Donald Trump's fault. Now, the other guy that's been in the news is Hunter Biden. His scandal has resurfaced, and the Attorney General in, I think it's the U.S. Attorney in the state of Delaware, is probing him for tax fraud, for cheating on his taxes. Now, here's how the Talking Snake media handles this when Hunter Biden is now being investigated by the federal government for tax fraud. Clip 7.
Sources tonight tell us that this investigation began in 2018, well before Joe Biden launched his candidacy.
While aides to his father said he is proud of his son, who emerged stronger after enduring vicious personal attacks by Republicans during the campaign. On that Hunter Biden investigation, CBS News has learned that law enforcement didn't actively pursue the case in the weeks leading up to November 3rd, keeping with Justice Department policy of mostly freezing politically sensitive cases leading up to Election Day.
Hunter Biden's business dealings in Ukraine and China while his father was vice president were the target of attacks by President Trump during the campaign.
Where's Hunter?
So, you summarize all of that, and here's what you come up with. Joe's clean. That was the point of that first soundbite. This happened before Joe Biden was running for president. This all happened in 2018. So you can't pin any of this on Joe. His hands, his skirts, his apron, completely clean. Nothing you can lay on Joe Biden in this deal. And then Hunter's a hero. Look what Hunter had to put up with, the malicious persecution, the harassment by Donald Trump and Donald Trump followers. So he's a hero. He's a survivor. He's a man of stature and courage. And the DOJ, we find out, went in the tank weeks before the November election to keep any of this from influencing the election. Well, you know, Martin Luther King was the one that said justice delayed is justice denied. The Department of Justice denied justice by delaying it in Hunter Biden's case. And then at the end, when Donald Trump goes after him, it's Trump's fault. Well, that's it for today. Bow low before God, stand tall before man, stand in the gap where God has placed you. Never forget, we are fighting a winnable war.
The views